Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Digital Inception, a podcast dedicated to spotlighting emerging tech in sales and marketing. I have a very exciting guest for you today. But first, I'll introduce myself. I'm Alison Fisher. I'm your podcast host, and I'm the founder at TechSpin Marketing Group. So at TechSpin, we help sales and marketing companies accelerate pipeline generation and scale their revenue within 3 to 6 months using some proven marketing frameworks. All right, so I will jump into our session today. Welcome, Gaurav. You are the CEO at Jiva.ai, and I'd love to learn a bit more about yourself and the product. I've looked into Jiva a little bit already. It sounds very cool. So if you wouldn't mind, just a brief introduction of yourself and company for now, and then I'll jump into product questions.
Yeah, sounds great. Allison, thank you so much for the opportunity. Very excited to be here on the podcast with you. And just a little bit about me. I'm the CEO and founder of Jiva.ai, and we're building an agentic AI platform for sales, primarily for sales reps and BDRs and SDRs to use. The easiest way to describe it would be it's like, I don't know if you've heard of GitHub Copilot or these tools like Cursor or Windsurf for coding. And we're trying to build the exact same thing, but for sellers and sales reps. So that's what we're doing.
Nice. That's really exciting. I know a little bit about these as mostly a marketer. All of these
Yeah.
tools are really interesting to me because my experience is mostly with marketing tools. So I'm always interested in learning about the sales side of things and
Yeah.
to help salespeople because I often get a lot of the complaints from the sales teams, as
Yeah.
to like what's taking them a lot of time and they don't want to be spending time on this and that or the other. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to learn more about kind of what problems you're solving today for salespeople. But first, what inspired you to start the company and what has your journey been like so
Yeah,
far?
for sure. Allison, I'll give you a quick story about myself. I grew up in a very blue collar family in New Delhi, lost my dad to cancer when I was two. Mom washed utensils door to door, but I was a nerdy kid. I started coding when I was about 10 years old, and I've always been super fascinated by sales. I'll give you a quick story. We had an uncle who was like the richest person in the family. So me and my brother always looked up to him because he always had the nice cars and the nice watches. And one time we asked him like, "Hey, what should we be doing so we can be as successful as you are?" And he was like, "Hey, the world's going. You should only learn two things in life to be successful. One is you should learn how to code, and one is you should learn how to sell." Which I still believe is so true, right? I think those are like two really important skill sets, and that's exactly what I did. So I got fascinated by sales. I started my first company right after high school, ran it for about 9 years, completely bootstrapped. I was in the healthcare space. It was still in machine learning and AI. 5 years, I did most of the coding and programming, and I would always hire sellers and salespeople, and they never worked out. And then I learned that as a founder, I think I should just roll up my sleeves and be in front of customers. So I started learning how to do sales and how to and it's not just sales, but it's like how do you help people, how do you ask the right questions, how do you close deals. I think that became really exciting for me. And so after that, the next company I always wanted to start in the sales space. Before that, we actually started a company for customer success, which you saw, right? It was involved. And we pivoted because for many years we tried a product that we were trying to build a churn prediction algorithm, which is any company can just turn it on and can see like which customer is at risk, which customer is doing well. But the challenge is data is so messy. So we kind of became like a consulting company and worked very hard, but we couldn't go anywhere. So we wanted to build something that we could use for sales and to get more sales in the door. And at that point, we decided to use Jiva ourselves, and then we decided to pivot. So a few months back, about 6, 7 months ago, we pivoted officially and just been growing nonstop since.
Nice. That sounds incredible. Also, your uncle couldn't have known how right right he was with know how to code and know how to sell. I think
Yeah,
that's like going to be true for a long time.
that's exactly right.
So, what was the main primary problem that you identified in the sales space that you're aiming to solve with Jiva?
Yeah, I think a really good analysis would be we were a little bit late to the game. There's a lot of I'm sure you've heard of these tools called AI SDRs, AI BDRs coming up, right? Like so we were very excited about that space and we wanted to build something here. But I truly believe that AI is not here to replace salespeople, and I don't think it can replace salespeople because humans buy from humans and people buy from people they trust. I think that's like one thing that I've learned in sales. I don't think AI is there where unless AI is buying software for you, AI would never, like, people would never buy from AI. So we really wanted to build something which can make like superhumans out of all the sales people, right? Like, can we have one salesperson closing 5x their quota, yeah, and doing so much more discovery calls and demos and like spending time with customers and solving their pain points instead of like doing cold outreach or research or manual tasks. And that's kind of what we wanted to replace. And that's exactly what we built. And that's kind of like what our AI does. And that's what we do every day. But the whole premise is built using AI from the ground up to help you find more leads, enrich more data, do hyper personalized outreach, do research on contacts. In the future, we'll have tools like you could just ask the AI, like, create this presentation for me. I just talked to this person. Here's everything about the company. Go create the best deck, create a proposal, whatever like you have to do manually. We want it to be done with AI so that you could just spend majority of your time talking to great prospects and customers and closing deals and giving value to them. So that's, I think that's like the primary use of our time. We would just want to, I truly believe like time is money, and it's kind of like, can AI help you multiply it? I think that's what we focus on.
And a lot of these things that you mentioned really are a lot of that manual work that
Yeah,
can be done by AI. It's not something that
exactly.
somebody has to be spending their own time doing, the research and the putting together of assets that they need for the sales process and all of that. That's all like the admin work. And then the selling part of it really is that personalized approach. Like when you get on a call and you're actually speaking with someone, understanding their scenario and their pain points. And that's the real like skillful selling.
Yeah.
And then all the other stuff is just, admin stuff that salespeople don't really enjoy doing, but also they shouldn't really have to do if there's another way to do it.
Exactly.
So getting a little bit more into that, then what would you say some of the core like features and capabilities are of Jiva that
Yeah.
really help salespeople maximize their time?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to describe it would be that you could come in the morning and you could just start typing, and you can say something like, I want to find a list of VPs of sales in San Francisco or SF in Los Angeles, and I want everyone who has more than 500 employees in their company in financial services and healthcare services. I also want to find people who use Salesforce. And you can say this in natural language instead of creating like those weird filters. And what we would do is the AI would scout through the web. We have multiple APIs that we use as well. So we have API partners, plus we have like ability to use Google and Perplexity and searches to come back with good results. And then it would just give you good results. You can then say, I want to enrich and find everyone's emails and cell phone numbers, and I'll find that for you. And then you can say, okay, now I want to create a personalized outreach to these 50 people. So AI will do the research on every single person, look at like their background, their history, write all their drafts, send it, and have the drafts ready for you. So all you're doing is proofread, approve, send, proofread, approve, send, proofread, approve, send. That's kind of the premise of it. It's like the ability to hone in on a great ICP, research them, and do personalized outreach is like the majority of the features. Obviously, there's so much more on like what kind of leads you want to find, right? Do you want to find local businesses? Do you want to find grocery stores? And on the back end, we have all these algorithms that are looking either, if you want to find good people, then like white collar workers, we might be looking at LinkedIn and Google searches. If you want to find local businesses, we might have like a Yelp API or a Google Maps API, then we're pulling that data for. And then we have different partners to give you like good data, good enrichment. And then you can automate it. You can say that, hey, I want you to run this search every single morning and identify all my champions from my previous company or from my previous like you from customers. And I want you to see like if they've changed jobs, then I want you to trigger me and send me a notification so I can reach out a personalized email with them, which is like, hey John, congratulations on your new role. Can I help you find this? So that's like how the product's built. It's built in a natural language interface. It's literally a text box when you come in and you can type and you can do anything. Just the difference between ChatGPT and this is that for ChatGPT, it's almost like a tool to kind of learn anything about anything. This would be a tool to automate all your tasks. That's kind of how we're designing. And you don't have to build those complex workflows. You don't have to build these Venn diagrams. You just tell the AI what to do, and we're trying our best to figure out what you want and then do it. And the way that the architecture works is like, and just trying to not get super technical, but the way is whatever query you have, we have this like agent that can figure out like what are you asking for and then route it to the right agent. So if it's like find leads, then it would say, okay, the user or the rep wants to find leads. Let's put it to the find leads agent. And then it has multiple tools. Like it would have access to different APIs that we use. It would have access to Google search. And then if the user says, I have a list I want to upload and I want to enrich this, clean it up, find everyone's LinkedIn for me, do research on them, and push it to Salesforce, then we'll put it to the enrichment agent. Or the rep can say, I want to do outreach or I want to do automation, then it'll go to the automation agent. So that's kind of how the architecture works. But we're trying to like remove all the complexity in the back end, make it super simple, like a natural language interface, almost like ChatGPT, where you can talk to it and ask it to do stuff for you. And then you just take that stuff, make it better, and send it out. That's kind of the goal that we're focused on.
So a couple things there. It sounds like what you're saying is Jiva really takes it one step further than ChatGPT. So ChatGPT might give you information and it might do some like really lightweight tasks,
Yeah,
but it's not going to actually build out workflows for you and actually
exactly.
do like, do these tasks that someone might use
Yeah.
ChatGPT to help them with, but then ultimately they still have to do the work to build things out.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And also ChatGPT doesn't have access to like people's emails and cell phone numbers, right? It wouldn't do that PII stuff for you or GDPR compliance stuff for you. You probably wouldn't be able to hook it up with your Salesforce instance, right? Or your HubSpot instance, and you wouldn't be able to push leads to it. So we're trying to just make it such that it's like a really smart ChatGPT or like an AI agent for sales that plugs into your HubSpot, your Salesforce, your email, and just like and is available to like do random tasks for you that you have to do every single day, right? And hopefully you can cut that time by 90% so that majority of the time then goes towards closing deals.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing too that you touched on was, you're getting good data back. So I think one of the challenges with some tools like Apollo, for instance,
Yeah,
those data tools, sometimes the quality of the data isn't very good. And that might be
yeah,
something that people, specifically B2B buyers looking at
yeah,
products like this, something that they worry about and they want to make sure the quality of the data is good. Based on what
exactly.
you said, it sounds like you have so many different sources that you
Yeah.
look to for this data, but maybe go into that a little bit more. How do you
Yeah.
ensure, the quality?
Yeah, totally. It's such a hard challenge to solve for. I think it's impossible to have like one data source just be a provider for everything. And the reason for that is that let's say if I'm Apollo and I have to maintain leads, or if I'm Zoom Info, then you have to maintain a database. And let's say if you have 300 million leads, and let's say LinkedIn has like 900 million leads or a billion people on LinkedIn, just as an example. That's the data source for everyone. Somebody at some point must have scraped everything, and then now that's like what's in the market. But the whole premise is, let's say Apollo has 300 million leads, Zoom Info has 300 million leads, but then you have to maintain it manually. You have to constantly enrich it and improve it. So the fact that you have to always have those 300 million be completely accurate at all times is very hard. So what we do is we follow this waterfall approach where we can plug into Ocean, Prospeo, Apollo, Zoom Info for different things because everyone's good at certain things. And then the AI is smart enough to say, okay, the user asked for cell phones. So let me ask this one API for cell phones that's very good instead of like, trying to like only rely on one data source. And this way, like our costs are down, users don't have to pay as much. So I don't know if you've heard of this tool called Clay. Clay is like a waterfall enrichment tool. So it's kind of like Clay's algorithm that we have built on our own, but we haven't built it with the complexity that Clay has. Because what Clay does is, if you've seen, it's super hard. You have to build your own. You have to build your own logic. We take care of it for you. You don't have to worry about it. And that's kind of what we're thinking of. Yeah. So
Right.
data quality is very important. But we're basically saying that we don't know how to solve it, so we're just going to rely on like different people, and all we do is just be smart about who to ask for different data source, basically.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. And there was one there that you mentioned, Ocean, which is I've used it recently. It creates lookalike lists.
Yeah, exactly.
It's super accurate. Like it's incredible how accurate the lists get. But then you look at the email data and
It's really bad.
it's really
Yeah,
bad. So
that's
it's like
exactly right.
the
That's
best
exactly
of
right.
all those different worlds and put them
So,
together.
so we use Ocean. So, for example, if a sales rep comes in and they're like, "Hey, I want to find all companies that are similar to Microsoft, Google, and Facebook," simple examples, but then we can build these lookalike audiences for you, and then we can find the right contacts using someone else. Then we can find the right emails using someone else. That's kind of the premise of how we're building it. But we'll take care of it. We'll solve it for you. Let AI figure this out, and then the sales rep gets just a great list that they can say, okay, now I want to push it to HubSpot or Salesforce. I want to download this, or I want to do a campaign on these. And that's kind of the premise of what we're building.
Cool. Well, do you have any specific use cases that your customers like are very popular with your customers, or
Yeah.
do you have any the second part you can answer one or both, but do you have any like success stories in which, client who has used Jiva and just really, really maximized their efficiency?
Yeah, I think one great example I have is that we had this startup called Service Mob that started. They were one of our early customers. That I don't know why, but that's the first example that came to mind. But I remember I was talking to the CEO recently, and they were saying that before they started working with Jiva, they had this budget that they had created, which was they had two SDRs and a couple of sales reps. And they said that they had this budget, which was for Zoom Info, Apollo, Lucia. They wanted to get Clay. I think there's like a few other tools that they had in there, Plus, they had created this budget for hiring more people. So they had like a budget that we'll go to like 5 BDRs and 10 reps. And what they have now is really interesting. They hired more people. So they're at 12 reps now, and they still have the 2 BDRs, and everyone uses Jiva. And so they could get rid of like all the different costs on top of like everything that they were going to pay for technology. So now they just have HubSpot, like a CRM, plus us, and everything that they needed is getting covered by us, which includes intent, top of funnel, mid funnel, all the stuff that obviously we don't do everything, but that's the goal eventually. And the cool part is like they didn't have to hire as many kind of like BDRs, SDRs. They could just hire like full stack sales reps, right? And you know how we have these full stack account executive, or like full stack software developers. I think that's like the model that they follow now. So they have the end-to-end reps who do everything from sourcing a deal to closing a deal and even managing the onboarding. And that's worked really well for them. And I feel like the market is going to go back to that because these super specialized roles become very expensive. And also, like, no one wants to be an SDR, BDR, right? No one wants to be doing like just like cleaning spreadsheets all day. So I feel like these specialized roles are going to go away. It's going to be more full stack reps, like in the old school days of account managers, account executives. And that's what GUI enables you to do. You could just have one rep who can do all of these tasks and get so much more work done. Just how AI is enabling software developers. I feel that's what's going to happen with AI in sales software very soon.
Interesting. That's such an interesting idea. Because like when you say it, it sounds like, oh, how can one person do so many things? But then
Yeah,
with something like Jiva, that really does enable them to be able to do all those things without it sounding so overwhelming, right?
that's
Because the
exactly right.
BDR part, just that portion of their job, which would ordinarily be so time consuming and take up such a huge percentage of their time, really becomes a very small portion. But
Mhm.
they have a better understanding of, who those ideal customers are because they started from the very beginning, right? Like
Yeah,
sourcing the leads part and
that's
then
exactly right.
taking them through. And then, of course, there's a retention component there too, which should be in the best interest of the salesperson always. But when they're just a salesperson and
Mhm.
not an account manager, then, that's often an area where attention can really fall off. So, the transition between like pre-sale to post-sale is like, okay, that transition, a lot of customers tend to suffer, and that's something that a lot of companies struggle with.
Yeah,
But if it's the same role, then that person really, it's their responsibility to follow all the way through.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly
that's really
right. That's
cool.
exactly right.
All right,
So,
so I'm going to jump into now some industry trends. So
okay.
obviously, Jiva's doing some really cool things with AI, but in general, what are some emerging trends that you're seeing in marketing and sales tech right now? And
Yeah.
how is Jiva positioned to capitalize on these?
Yeah, that is really interesting, and I see like a lot of trends come up and then disappear pretty quickly. I'll give a really good example. Like video became super popular recently, and everybody was on it. There's some really good tools like HeyGen, and there's others like where you can do voice, like 11 Labs, and a lot of people were, especially marketers, were early adopters. They were doing like a lot of podcasts with these, and then they were doing automated videos. And then all of a sudden, this trend disappeared. And I feel that the challenge with these trends is that the channels that take the message across for sales, like especially for B2B sales, are email, LinkedIn, and voice. Let's say even like text message or maybe WhatsApp. Those are the top 4 channels where you can reach out to. And those are like severely stopping any AI generated stuff that is easy to catch. So this trend became super popular and then it went down really quickly. Now
Yeah.
voice became a really important trend and a very popular trend right now. Like at least a lot of my competitors, our competitors are doing voice and they were doing voice outbound. And then recently, voice outbound, AI voice outbound became illegal. So I think it's so interesting that there's a lot of trends, but then it goes down pretty quickly. I think marketing has been like a bigger adopter of AI because the channels are still larger and you can do one to many. But in the
Hmm.
one-to-one conversations like sales, I feel like authenticity and like people doing conversations has still been like the topic, which has been really interesting.
Hmm.
One trend that I do think of is the ability to kind of instead of like managing like I think the biggest trend that I'm really excited about, Allison, is like the emergence of like a full stack kind of sales rep. I'm
Oh,
seeing this again and again, and I'm seeing this in my company and a lot of other companies because a lot of the junior people that are coming out of college, like when I started my career, I was an SDR and I never wanted to be an SDR, but that's like the easiest job for you to get. But it's just a mind-numbing job. You're just waking up, you're making 200 calls a day. That's like really hard for you to do. So I feel like these full stack sales reps would be interesting. The second thing that I'm really excited about is this emergence of AI trained talent. So obviously, like I think you and I are very smart. We hang out with smart people. We always use AI everywhere. But what I've seen is a real reluctance of a lot of folks learning AI, like basic stuff, like even ChatGPT or Claude or using cool tools. I feel
Mhm.
what's going to happen is the market's going to heavily reward people who are trained in AI, who want to learn, who are just proactive, who do it. And
Mhm.
there's a really hot demand for that talent right now. So I feel there's going to be an emergence of a lot of like talent that are just like very expensive, not very expensive, but like available maybe in outside the US even, but like people would be wanting to have this AI trained talent, which is going to be very exciting. And they're going to be trained on tools like Perplexity, tools like Jiva, tools like ChatGPT and Claude, and they would just be doing 3x more. And I think that's like where the immediate attention is. I don't think AI is ready to take any of our jobs away yet, probably like a decade from now. But I think AI, like AI trained people will be the.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I actually, even with a lot of my clients, what I'm seeing is, and this is just an example, like a specific use case example, but I think it's really interesting is, hiring a content writer, right? Like an in-house expert, but they're not just expected to be a writer, they're really expected to be like an AI expert as well. Maybe not an expert, but someone who has an interest in and wants to develop their AI skills so that yes, they have the human lens of what good content looks like, but they are able to produce more of the content that a marketing team needs because of the accelerated benefit of AI. So
I
I'm starting
agree.
to see that in a lot of job descriptions and even just clients and the way that they're hiring and the way they're
Mhm.
looking at skill
Yeah.
sets. And AI is definitely one of the things that I've been seeing a lot of. So I definitely think there's something to that for sure.
I totally agree. And Allison, I also feel like in marketing, I'm sure you're seeing this too, but I'm seeing a trend of like from super specialization to like generalization is coming back again. So I remember in my last startup when we grew, we had an SEO specialist. I used to hire a graphic designer just for the marketing team. Then I had a content writer. Then I had multiple content writers, like someone who can do short form on social media, someone who can do long form content. But and we don't do much marketing now, but the role that I was thinking of, like I was thinking I'm going to make my first couple of marketing hires. And what I'm going to hire is like this AI specialist person who's basically can take AI content, make it human, can understand the customer's pain points, can write about those, can do SEO research with some AI tools, can then, do optimization on their own, can use tools like Canva or some other AI tools. Now GPT-4o can do image generation, can do that. So now you can have one person who you don't need like 4 or 5 really highly skilled, deep technical expertise. Obviously, you can replace those people, but that's exactly what I was thinking of. Is that's probably the first person I'd want to hire, who's like an AI specialist who can like take 5 6 AI tools and then do like 5 6 different roles. Obviously, they won't be able to go 100% deep and be the best person in that, but can they go 80% deep and get the job done? And I think that's like a new role that is going to emerge in like every different kind of sector, right? Or discipline.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought too. So I haven't actually seen that as much as you maybe
Okay.
have, but what I have seen is like a combination of skills that make sense together but haven't typically been paired together or not always are. So a couple of examples I can think of is, like a graphics designer and a web developer.
Yeah.
Those could easily
Yeah.
be two different roles, right? Like you've got
Yeah.
coding and then creative
Oh
skill
yeah.
set, which are
Sure.
completely different. And it's actually a challenge to find someone who really can
Yeah.
have both
Can do
those skill
both.
sets.
Yeah.
But again, like AI will be very useful in, hiring just the one person who maybe
Yeah.
is a little more the creative or a little more of
Yeah.
the back end website person.
Sure.
And then, they use AI to really fill in the gap of that other skill set.
I
And
really
then
agree.
the other scenario I've got too is, often, especially with bigger teams, you get content writers who are just content, they have no understanding of
Right.
SEO, or you get SEO people who have very little understanding of content.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that that role is being combined more too, because obviously there's a big SEO optimization component within like the content that's going to be published on a website. And there has to be that kind of, understanding in both of those roles,
Yeah.
or just have one person in that role. And again, kind of fill the gap with AI for the knowledge that they don't have. As they really are a subject matter expert in one of those areas.
Hmm.
So I see it kind of like, I don't know, like almost like a hybrid scenario of what you describe, which is
Yeah,
going, full stack marketer or like specialized roles. So I
sure.
see something a little more in between, but maybe that's a sign that things are going that way, to
Yeah.
full stack marketers.
Yeah, that would be super interesting. I don't know how the trends would be, but I totally agree. There might be like somewhere in between. I
Yeah.
love this idea because I feel like if designers, I always think about this, if designers are able to write their front end code, then it would just make so much the job of like actual full stack development so much easier. Because the biggest challenge that I have seen is like they're getting the designers mock-ups or whatever they create to actually be reflected because it's really there's a communication barrier that always happens. At least
Yes.
in my career, I've seen that, right? So if I always foresee like if my designer could just like actually build the front end UI and we just
Yeah.
need some back end person to finish it, I think it would be so much better. So I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah, probably faster too. That's the thing, right? All right. So jumping into another question, what are some common misconceptions marketers or sales leaders have about adopting smaller, innovative tech solutions like Jiva?
Yeah, I think oh man, I think the market's really split. I feel that what's happening in the sales market, unfortunately, is there's a lot of overpromise and underdeliver. And I think that that's leaving people with I think there's a lot of hype about AI and a lot of people feel that it's gonna be the silver bullet. So there's a lot of that happening where everyone's like, oh yeah, now I have AI, so I should be able to grow like crazy. I should be able to get 1,500 blogs out. I should be able to write whatever, right? Or I should be able to get 1,500 calls in a second. And it's not a silver bullet. It's just maybe like instead of one lead bullet, it's three lead bullets, but it doesn't replace the basics of good product market fit, good messaging, good positioning, building a product that's actually valuable to the world or building a service that's actually valuable to the world. I think people are trying to like bypass some of that and just like use AI to have like a bunch of silver bullets. And it's not a silver bullet. So what's happening is the buyer expectation is like very high. And then what happens is like companies like Jiva come in and we don't do this, but I'm just saying like other companies and startups, they come in and then they're like, oh yeah, we can like solve the world hunger, right, with this technology. So and then what ends up happening is like buyers buy this and they're very excited, and then it almost falls down to bottom because their expectations were very high. The salespeople selling this stuff is, they're selling even more like sky high, and adoption is like really really difficult. Like besides like a few different tools like ChatGPT and Claude, like no one's getting adopted. Like I'll give an example of Agent Force. Like Salesforce is doing a lot of work with Agent Force and they've spent a lot of money and they're going to build great solutions, but no one's really using it, right? That's the challenge, right? Like I don't know like a single user that is actually like using it, or I mean they'll get there, but it's not there yet, right? So I think that's like those are like really real challenges that companies would have to like figure out and face. And I think that's like something that's happening in the market that I was talking about, like expectation setting is not there yet. But I feel like AI is real. It's not a hype. It's going to be here. Everyone's going to use it. I feel we're going to see like more co-pilot like solutions, like making people 3x better, 10x better, instead of like fully automated deployments of like stuff. But I think we'll get there sooner rather than later, maybe like in a few years, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that the people who get super excited about AI and think it's, going to solve their business challenges today or tomorrow are typically like the investors, right? Who see a little glimpse of what AI is capable of, and they just think that like, oh, it's going to change the game, like every single task that the company does, and
Yeah.
tomorrow we're going to see, X productivity. It doesn't quite work like that. Like you said, there's a lot of over promising and under delivering. Think that that is probably going to be the case for a little while. I think also as a marketer, I think that too, that's why, in my opinion, like ethical marketing, right? You don't make claims that are untrue to your product. And I think I understand the temptation as well as the marketer, you want to share the vision and market the vision of what the product could be one day. And that's what everyone's buying into in the company.
Yeah.
But really like taming expectations, right? And
Yeah.
the last thing you want to do is disappoint new customers because
Yeah.
that's ultimately going to be bad for business in the long term.
That's exactly right. And I think one of the biggest challenges that these AI companies and us and everyone else has is like everyone's very quick to adopt, but then very quick to churn as well. So I think it would be really interesting to figure out how these AI companies can build stuff that can have customers that last them for decades. I think that would be super interesting to figure out. I don't think anyone's cracked the code on it yet,
Yeah.
and we're trying as well, and we have others, like obviously everyone else is trying, but that would be super interesting to see Because even in marketing stack, I'm sure you know these tools better. Like there used to be like really hype tools like Copy AI, Jasper AI, right? They were called Conversion before, and then
Mhm.
they had these hype cycles, and then it kind of like slowly vanished, and they were struggling with churn. Right now we have like similar tools like Bolt New and Lovable. There's like these are phenomenal tools. I
Mhm.
mean, they're in the hype cycles of coding, and Cursor and Windsurf and all these tools. I think it'll be interesting to see like what the churn looks like a year from now, and and I think we'll have the same hype cycle for AI tools, and so for sales tools, and we'll have to figure out how we can keep customers really happy for a long time, not just for a month or a quarter.
Yeah, and I think it's the companies, to your point, that do a good job of expectation setting, managing, that are going to be the ones that ultimately, retain their customers and come out ahead, right? They're not going to be the ones where the hype dies down and they kind of just fizzle out.
Exactly, spot on, totally agree with you.
So another question for you, in terms of, growth goals for the company, what do you see for the next 12 to 24 months?
Oh man, whatever I see, I feel like my investors and my board always adds like another zero to it, and I'm laughing, but not really. But I think we want to be a very fast growing company, so we had a really quick journey from 0 to 3-ish million in ARR in just the past few months. The goal would be to end the year at least at 10 million, but if we can get to 15 or 20, that would be amazing. And then it's like, how can we like triple again, right? Like, can we get to 40, 50 million, right? Be a legitimate big company. Because I think unless you're 10 or 20 million in revenue, at least what we are building, you're not considered seriously anywhere. You're just a tiny startup. I think when you start getting into 20, 30, 40, 50 million, then you're like, okay, a legitimate player in your space. You're building something, you're building a category. So can't wait to get there. It'll happen. It might take a couple of years, it might take 1 year, who knows, right? So that's kind of what we're going towards. But I'm not, as a founder and CEO, I'm a big believer of Steve Jobs' focus. I don't know if you've heard him saying that you have to figure out everything on the top line. You need a good business strategy, you need a really good product, you need amazing people, and the bottom line will follow. So I never lead the company, as much as my board and investors might hate this, but I don't say that, okay, our goal is to get to 10 million or 20 million or 30 or 100 million, and everything else will follow that strategy. It's actually like, can we build really good products? Can we have the right people? Can we have a really good strategy? Can we create a new market? And then hoping that we can hit our revenue goals based on that. And that's kind of like how I lead the company. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but we'll see in a decade or so.
That's actually, yeah, that honestly, that's really incredible. Like, and I haven't heard, a CEO kind of talk about their approach being that way, where
Yeah,
they don't have like a revenue target so much as building, which makes a lot of sense, by the way, like making sure that your foundations
yeah,
are set up for success and then
exactly,
the revenue will come, right? Because
exactly.
most founders, and also maybe because they're being pushed by investors, right? That it's like, this is the revenue target. And often the cases I have found in working in a lot of startups is that number kind of, it's arbitrary, right? There's no market research, there's no,
Sure.
based it off of, industry
Mm,
standards or whatever the case might be. It's just
mm,
like, we want the company to grow X over the next 2 years or whatever the outrageous number might be. And it's like, oh, because we would like that. That's the
yeah,
answer, is like, that's what we want. It's
for
it's
sure.
not based on anything, any real data. So
Yeah,
with targets like that, I've often found it can set the company up for disappointment, right?
mm,
Because you set it too high and it's unrealistic and you don't have those foundational pieces because that hasn't been the focus. It's just been revenue, revenue, revenue.
for
You
sure.
forget about other things like retention and good customer service and all these
Mm,
other bits that maybe you are actually focusing on. So I
absolutely.
actually love that approach. Like,
Yeah,
I think it's, as someone who has just been through this cycle so many times with so many different companies,
yeah,
I think that this is like actually a recipe for success,
sure.
when it comes to
That
building. But I mean, you've had been involved in successful companies before, so I'm sure you know what you're doing.
Sure, surely. Yeah, I've definitely had my share of good success and a lot of failure. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
comes
think
with,
one thing starting your company, and this, Allison, gives you like a lot of thick skin.
yeah, it
It's like
does. Yeah, you get used to the roller coasters for
totally.
sure. You
Yeah.
know they're coming.
Right, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. Like one thing I was reading about recently is like I feel like I'm a very gritty person. For example, like if every time bad things happen, I'm always very quick to jump on my feet. I was
Right.
reading about this new concept which I heard, which I don't know where I was reading it, but it talked about like some Harvard Business Review
Mhm.
article had talked about resilience is as important as being gritty or having a lot of grit, which was really interesting. Like, how bad do you feel when bad things happen? And
Yeah,
I feel like I'm not good at that. Like everything, something bad happens, I'm like very sad, and like, and
right.
maybe I'm quick to get back up, like maybe in an hour, 2 hours, or a day. But that was super interesting. Always something new to learn. So
Yeah, no, it's like, I mean, that we could talk about that for hours, but like having the right mindset, and if you're an entrepreneur is so important because if you let yourself just like sink into the worry or like the things that
exactly,
aren't working out in the moment and you can't see past those things and see, like, no, but
exactly,
at the end, this is the vision and this is what it will be.
yeah,
I think that that is actually like super key difference between success and failure, like in
yeah,
general with entrepreneurs. So,
exactly, spot
because
on.
I mean, I think it's great to let yourself, have the feelings of being sad. I mean, we're only human, right?
Yeah,
But it's like how quickly, like you said, can we jump back to it and just get refocus, have that time and then refocus. I think that that's a really, really critical like skill set almost that you've got to almost learn, or a lot of people need to learn it,
I totally agree.
maybe it comes naturally to you and maybe that's been part of your success, but
Yeah,
I've definitely had to kind of train myself a little bit until like, no, I'm focusing on the wrong things right now. That's not going to get me anywhere. Like what's next,
yeah,
right? So, yeah.
exactly, spot on.
I have one more question for you.
Sure.
So, if you could wave your magic wand to fix one thing in your business right now,
Wow, there's so many things, right? I
what-
feel, I think the first thing that when you say that, the first thing I can think of is marketing. I feel like we have done no marketing, and talking to you makes me even feel even worse because like we've been so busy on building a product and like using our own product to get leads and try to close deals. I think we've done a good job, but like we usually don't come up everywhere in every conversation, and I feel that there's a constant FOMO that I feel
yeah,
like, oh man, only if you had started 3 months ago or 6 months ago, if you had only started building relations with journalists 6 months ago or a year ago, or like, or talked to influencers beforehand, or started campaigns or did any Google ads or some SEO. We've done zero of that, which kind of makes me feel really bad. And sometimes really happy. Sometimes I'm like, we focus on the product, we spend really and worked really hard, and product wins at the end. But then I see all these competitors who have like a really terrible product, or raise a lot more money than us, or like have
right,
billboards and spend like all this stuff everywhere constantly, like in the hype cycle. I don't know if it's gonna last, but then it feels like, man, are we like missing out? Like, are they just gonna go ahead and take the market? So I think that's something that I feel, I think if I could fix that, I would do it right away.
right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's amazing like how far you've gotten without marketing so far.
Yeah,
Because as a marketer, I'm all about marketing. So I'm like, you need marketing, but
for sure.
yeah, no, I think it's incredible what you've built so far
Thank
without
you.
it. Yeah. And then one last final
Sure.
um question to wrap it up is where can listeners go if they want to learn more about Jiva?
Oh, great. Yeah. So it's really simple. It's just www.jiva.ai.
Okay.
And that's the website. That's Jiva.ai. And we're going to open self-serve sign up very soon too, so
Cool.
people will be able to sign up for free, can use the tool for free. In like, we still have early access if anyone wants to get access or use it for free, or try it for the teams, for sellers or BDRs,
Mhm.
or field reps. I'm happy to hook them up. And my name is Gaurav Bhattacharya. The funny story is, like, you can find me on LinkedIn, but you'll have to look hard because I always thought that I'm the only Gaurav Bhattacharya for a long time, but now there's like 1,500. So like I don't know why that's happening, but there's a lot of folks with this unique name, just not as unique anymore.
Yeah.
But if you search for Gaurav Jiva, then you should be able to find me on LinkedIn, and I'm very responsive there.
Okay, sounds great. You need to get onto some LinkedIn thought leadership on your on your page.
For sure. Yeah, I gotta do that.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I think that was a
It's
great
super
discussion.
fun.
Some good gems in there. So I'm excited for people to hear this.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so much, Allison.
Thank you again.